From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy. Canada has announced it will provide Ukraine with another $500 million in military assistance. At the NATO summit in Washington, D.C., Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is set to have a one-on-one with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss the war. There's already been pressure from American politicians who are publicly critical of Canada for failing to meet NATO defense spending commitments. Of the 32 allies, only 23 are expected to meet the 2% quota this year, but Canada is the only nation member that hasn't presented a plan to get to that minimum. About a dozen angry fishers interrupted a press conference at the country's environmental ministers in Newfoundland and Labrador today, demanding the federal government reinstate a 32-year-old moratorium on commercial cod fishing in the province. President of the union representing small fishers, Greg Priddy, says they oppose Ottawa's decision last month to reopen the fishery and allow foreign and offshore vessels a portion of the catch.
What DFO has done, what the government of Canada has done here, is transferred a resource that, as Glenn said, we took 32 years to nourish.
Priddy is demanding a meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and says fishers in Newfoundland and Labrador weren't consulted about the reopening of the northern cod fishery. A pro-Palestinian protest encampment has been removed from McGill University's downtown Montreal campus. Protester Felix Burt says it was a last stand, and he refused to leave the site until the university divested from investments tied to Israel's military and cut ties with academic institutions from the country. Crews worked under pounding rain to carry off belongings from the encampment site as bulldozers and security forces dismantled the zone that has been on the school's lower field since late April. The head of the Assembly of First Nations has informed chiefs that a draft deal with Ottawa on child welfare reforms is worth $47.8 billion. That's more than double than what was initially promised. Canadian Press reporter Alessia Pasafumi has more.
Our understanding is that some of that money will be used for First Nations communities directly who are overtaking their child welfare systems. But beyond that, we don't have any more details beyond the $47.8 billion that the federal government has offered.
The federal government originally promised $20 billion for long-term reforms for the child welfare system, but Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak says the deal with Ottawa would likely top that amount. A northern Ontario town has formally agreed to become the site of a deep geological repository for Canada's nuclear waste. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization says it will build a site in Ignis, Ontario, after the town council voted in favor of it at a special meeting today. The $26 billion project will construct a facility that sits as far underground as the CN Tower is tall. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, Canada has finalized its Olympic men's basketball roster, and it is heavy on NBA experience. Oklahoma City star Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Denver guard Jamal Murray are among the 11 players on the 12-man roster who have suited up in the world's premier professional hoops league. The Toronto Blue Jays look to draw even in their 3-game series with the Giants when the teams meet in San Francisco tonight. The Giants won last night's opener 4-3 after scoring twice in the bottom of the ninth, with the winning run coming up on a wild pitch. Chris Bassett is scheduled to take the mound for Toronto, while the Giants are sending in Logan Webb. And former Toronto Raptors player Jontay Porter has pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud in a U.S. federal criminal case tied to a betting scandal that got him banned from the league. An NBA probe found earlier this year that Porter wagered on games and gave bettors confidential information about his health. From the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.